Good morning, students. Welcome to the ARK Reflections IAS newspaper analysis of the day. Let's quickly glance the important articles from the today's newspaper. So, before starting the happy May Day from the ARK Reflections IAS. So, let's continue with the newspaper. So, Pakistan is the epicenter of terrorism, which is strongly said by the Rajnath Singh, our defense minister, and remove time limit on abortions. Very, very important. So Supreme Court advised government to remove the time limit, especially on the minor girls, which are rape victims from the minor girls. Next important article. So Iran vows to safeguard its nuclear capabilities. So Iran strongly said that it is not ready to give away its nuclear capability for the sake of any truce or something. And the next important, the revenue deficit. States may face the physical stress. The center warned the states who are having the more revenue deficit, means they're having the revenue expenditure more than the revenue receipts. So central government has warned some state, especially the 9 of the 18 large states are facing the revenue deficit, especially the top four are Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Kerala, and Andhra Pradesh. So these are the states which are facing a huge revenue deficit. So next important article we'll discuss was with the editorials. So in the editorials, so on May Day, a workforce in India without a floor. So this is the day. So according to the other, this is the day. It is not a day for the celebrating the our workforce. This is the day we have to look into the problems what our labor force is facing, and we should take a strong, resolute action to means clear those problems. Okay. Next important articles we'll discuss about the this lift abortion time limit for minor rape survivors. Supreme Court advised that advised the government to lift the abortion time. At present, the abortion time is around 20 weeks. In special cases, it is 24 weeks. So Supreme Court advised you should not keep any time limit for the abortion, especially with the minor rape victims. Okay. So this is also very important. India's first green methanol plant to turn cuts most an invasive weed into the marine fuel. So there is an invasive weed named Prosopis zulifera. This is an invasive weed. So with these invasive weed in cuts, there is a first biomethanol plant is coming as they use this weed and they convert this weed into the methanol. So very important news. And next, you can see foreign investments dump 60,000 crores. The foreign investment dump 60,000 crores in April alone, especially the foreign investors who invested in India in this April alone. So they have taken the 60,000 crores from India. As so we have to give the means when they take that their money, so they will take in the dollars. So the foreign outflow of the dollars is more. So at present situation is not good due to the West Asian crisis, and the Indian economy is showing the downward trend. So these foreign investors, so they lost the hope in the Indian market. So they sold their investments and stocks, whatever the things, and they have taken almost 60,000 crores from India in April alone. Okay. So next important article. So UN General Assembly elections. So how is the next UN chief being to choose? So from January 2027, so we'll have the new UN Secretary General. So we'll discuss how this UN Secretary General will be elected in UN, and these are all the important articles of the day. So starting with the first important article. So lift abortion time. So lift abortion time on the rape survivors. So our CGA, our Chief Justice of India, Sri Surjakant, so on his bench, he advised the government to lift abortion time limit for the minor rape survivors. Why? So we can clearly see. So why should be? Because Supreme Court strongly believes when to abort. when to abort should be the decision of survivors and parents. This is the judgment which is given due to the one rape case. So a 15-year-old girl is raped and she got pregnant. So now she crossed the threshold of the government limit, which is 24 weeks. So that's what the government, the Supreme Court, when the case went to the Supreme Court gave the suggestion to the government to lift the timeline. So we can here clearly see, so the decision should not be with the state and doctors. So case should be decided within the week. And Supreme Court is also advised the courts, the lower courts, to take the decision within a week. Okay. And the current law, the Medical Termination of the Pregnancy 2021 Act, the current law, the Medical Termination of the Pregnancy 2021 Act, so which says that the normal limit of the termination of pregnancy is 20 weeks. 20 weeks. And special cases like the rape survivors, minors, and the women with disabilities, it is 24 weeks. And beyond the 24 weeks, there will be no termination of pregnancy, which means the victim have to bear the child and give the delivery for the child. So beyond 24 weeks, even now, beyond 24 weeks, if she want to terminate her pregnancy, it has to be decided by court. So the main issue here, so the minor rape survivors, usually the minor rape survivors, what happens, why the Supreme Court has strongly advised to remove the cap of these 24 weeks was, these minor rape survivors, very lately they will report that issue. So they report that late, and they report very late. Because why? Because they face trauma, and they delay the medical access. The medical access is not very easy for the rape survival victim, because they are not, first of all, they don't openly tells that I got raped. So the time factor is very important, because the biological process, it doesn't have any rationality of what the victim is facing. And what the Supreme Court's argument in this case, what the Supreme Court clearly tells, the child's best interest is the first. The child's best interest is the first. And she is already a victim of our society. And we don't want her to carry that scar throughout her life. So if we won't give the option for her to terminate, if she bear the child, and the Supreme Court directly said, we don't want her to carry this scar throughout the life. And the option to continue with the pregnancy or to terminate indefinitely should be with the victim and her parents. That is what Supreme Court said. And the Supreme Court's further arguments are, so time limit harms the real victims. The time limit really harms the real victims, and the survivor plus parents should be the choice. So this is the core issue why the Supreme Court has advised the government to remove this cap of 24 weeks in special cases and 20 weeks for the normal cases for the pregnancy termination. Okay, we'll see the next article. So on May Day, a workforce in India without a floor. So what the author is telling, this May Day is not the moment to celebrate, is not the moment of celebration, but the moment of introspection. Because we have seen this in news lately. So 1 month back exactly, there is a protest happened in NCR region. NCR region means the National Capital Region, for the minimum basic wage, of 20,000 rupees. Just imagine, just for 20,000 rupees, the workers are protested, which means that they are not getting even the 20,000 rupees. Even sometimes they're getting much less than the 13,000 rupees, sometimes 16,000 rupees. But they strongly advise we need 20,000 rupees. So clearly it means that the minimum basic wages, what the government is setting, which is clearly not meeting the living standards, the present living standard. The minimum wages are not meeting the present living standards. What is mean by the living standards? Like children's education, rent, food, survival. So this is the classic case of the survival versus dignity of living. Survival versus dignity of living. Survival versus dignity of living. And here the author tells the two cases. Like in one case, there is protest. Clearly the protest where the for the minimum wage, and there are the industrial accidents. So recently in one thermal plant in Tamil Nadu, Vedanta's thermal plant, so with the boiler has burst and almost more than 20 members have died. So there are safeties, so safety issues, so structural safety issues. So India is facing two types. One is with the problem to understand the wage problem of the labor, and also the safety concern, the repeated accidents in Tamil Nadu, in Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh. Like we can see the multiple industrial accident, which clearly shows the systematic failure. Systematic continues. It's a symptom of safety and structural failure. And also government recently, it has means it has what it compressed, or it combined 29 laws, 29 labor laws into just 4 labor codes. So it's combined 29 labor laws into just 4 labor codes. And these 4 labor codes, what it clearly tells was, so it was more employee friendly. It was more employee friendly. Employee friendly in the sense, for example, if any company in the previously it has to lay off 100 members, if a company has to lay off 100 workers, so it should need the government permission. It need government permission. But according to the new labor laws, minimum 300, only with the more than 300 layoffs, it need government's permission. And also the definition of the industry. The definition of the industry is also more flexible. So here what it is telling, the new labor laws, where they clubbed 29 labor laws into just 4 labor codes, what they have done, they have made those laws more employee friendly or the investor friendly, not the welfare of the laborers. So it has given the less importance for the welfare of the laborers, and it was more pro to the ease of doing business or to attract the investments. So what author is also telling, in the guise of encouraging, in the guise of encouraging ease of doing business, government is letting go or just forgetting the safety and welfare of the employers. So this is the day, and this is the May Day, which is not to celebrate for the, so as a labor day, but to really work for the laborers and for their welfare. So that is what the other was strongly holding. So clearly government is failing in two aspects, even not just with the wage. As we see the serious protests in the NCR region, the National Capital Region, the government, instead of talking with the laborers, with the labor leaders or whatever the company leaders, so it has taken it as a law and order problem, and it used the lathi charge to clear the workers for not doing any protest. And but it also, with the new labor codes, it made the labor codes into more employee friendly, not the worker friendly, which is a very, very serious issue. So that is what the author is telling. And the next important article, the revenue deficit states, which means the states are having more revenue expenditure. Revenue expenditure is more comparing to the revenue receipts. So what is mean by the revenue receipts and the revenue expenditure? So some governments which are spending more of the revenue expenditure, like schemes, subsidies, or whatever these kind of freebies. So government spending is more. And when it comes to the revenue receipts, the taxes, it was more than its receipts, like the taxes or fees or cess or any kind of tax collection. So comparing the tax collection and revenue expenditure is more. If the revenue expenditure is more, what happens to the states? The states, for the revenue to meet their revenue expenditure, they will take the huge loans and they will pay huge interest. And next year, what happens? So in this, the cycle will repeat, and the states will go into the debt trap. So most of the income here, they also highlighted one classic example. Example, Punjab. So Punjab, every year, almost they are paying 20% of the 22% of their state's revenue just to pay the interest. So Punjab is just paying 22% of the state revenue just for paying the interest. So that is the classic case. And especially if the government want, especially the states you can see, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Kerala, and Andhra Pradesh. These are very strong negative side when it comes to the revenue deficit. So we'll clearly just let's know. So what is the revenue deficit? Revenue deficit means the revenue expenditure minus revenue receipt. What is the revenue expenditure? Salary, pension, subsidies, interest. These are all revenue expenditure. And revenue receipts, taxes, fees, other income. So these are all revenue receipts. So if expenditure is more than income, what will happen? Even now, so we are receiving our salaries. If our salaries is so our expenditure is more than our salaries, what we'll have a deficit. So we need to take the loans from other places, and the cycle repeats. So now the other ones, the many Indian states are in this kind of loop. The center strongly wants these states about the physical stress, about the physical stress. If continues, if this situation continues, what happens? If the states continues to spend and use the freebies, what will happen? To survive these states, they have to borrow more money. If they have to borrow more money, the borrowing increases. So then they have to pay a lot of interest additional to these schemes and freebies. And what will happen? Their physical health will be worse. And again, the more stress, and the loop continues. As simple like that. If they spend more money on these schemes, freebies, what happens? Less money for development. If there is less money for development, so again they have to take loans. If they take loans, they have to pay more interest, and this loop will continue. With this loop will continue. That's what the central government wants. The states borrow more and debt cycle worsens, the physical stress deepens. So worst performing states are Himachal Pradesh, 2.4% of its GSDP. So gross state domestic products, it's 2.4%, and the Punjab minus 2.2%, Kerala minus 2.1%, and Andhra Pradesh minus 1.1%. These are the top 4 worst performing states when it comes to the revenue deficit. And the better performing states also, government has issued the indications like Odisha, Jharkhand, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh. These are better performing states when it comes to the revenue deficit. And clearly the Punjab alone, 22.8% of their revenue goes just for interest payment. Just imagine how much deep this Punjab state was in the debt trap. Okay. So the revenue deficit or spending the money more on the revenue expenditure in the schemes are not at all good for the physical health of any state. Okay. Next, India's first green methanol plant to turn the Kutch most invasive weed into marine fuel. So what happens here? The first green methanol plant is coming in the Kutch, Gujarat, and they use the weed. The Prosperous zulifera. The Prosperous zulifera is a weed, so which is used this weed. So that manufacturing plant uses this weed and they manufacture the biomethanol. So we'll see how this procedure goes. India is setting up its first green methanol plant in Kutch, and it will use invasive weed, not any productive crop. So the process is zulifera to produce what? The marine fuel. The marine fuel is a green methanol. So why? If they use this marine fuel, what will happen? So it has a almost 95% less carbon dioxide and more than 80% less nitrous oxide, and it will completely eliminate the sulfuric oxides. So what happens? This weed, first it was introduced in India by 1920. Why they introduced? To stop the desertification in Delhi. To stop the desertification in Delhi. So the British introduced this weed. This is not the native weed of India. This was introduced by British to stop the desertification. And it destroys the native grasslands and biodiversity. Means it is, so this weed definitely is not a great savior or the great help for the biodiversity. So that's what the government planned to use the same this weed to make the methanol. So what is the solution to remove this weed? Convert this waste into green methanol. So how is this process? This process of conversion happens. In the step one, the gasification. This weed is heated without oxygen. When this weed is heated without oxygen, and it will turn into the syngas. And what is the syngas? Carbon dioxide plus hydrogen, and these syngas CO plus 2H2, and it will convert into the methanol. So we know this is the process how the weed was converted into methanol, and the methanol is used for the shipping fuel, and it cuts the carbon dioxide up to 95%. And we know with the West Asia crisis how strongly our India was deeply in the trap of energy. Like, we are not an energy independent nation, so we are heavily dependent on energy. That's why our economy is also showing the downward trend. Okay, so at least means these kind of methods and these kind of policies are very good for to make the India move towards the path of energy independency. Okay, so we'll see the next article. For foreign investors, the foreign investors dump 60,000 crores. So what they happened due to the global uncertainties happened, and India's economy is showing the downward trend. And these foreign investors, they sold their stocks. And when they sold their stocks, and they will take that money back to their back to their countries. So they will not take in the rupees. They don't want rupees, right? So definitely they convert the rupees into dollars. So what will happen? So government, the RBI, have to maintain more dollars, and the stress on the rupee will increase, because now the rupee supply will be more when they supply the rupee, when they sold their stocks, and there are a lot of rupees with the government, and with that exchange they have to give the dollars. So India needs more dollars, and it will increase our current account deficit, right? So when India needs more dollars, so it increases our current account deficit. So the value of the rupee will decrease. Already we have seen almost, and the rupee reaches to $1 is equal to 95 Indian rupees. The conversion rate is the $1 is equal to 95 Indian rupees. So what happens in the brief? In April, the foreign investors sold around 60,000 crores, 60,847 crores in April, just April alone, in the last month. So took that money out of India. This is called FII outflow, foreign institutional investors outflow. This is also one of the reasons our economy is in the downtrend, and also our rupee is weakening. So foreign investors, what they will do? Foreign investors, they sells that Indian shares and convert that rupee into dollars. And then when they convert the rupee into dollars, demand for dollar increases. Obviously, the demand for dollar increases. Now, the Federal Reserve of US, they also increase the interest rates, which means to invest in the American markets is much more profitable. It is looking like investing in the American market is more profitable than the investing in Indian market. And the now Indian market, we also know, because of our energy problems. So our economy suffering. If the economy is suffering, then what happens? The shares and other values will increase or decrease. Obviously, they will decrease. And these foreign investors, what will happen? So when they invest in India, they want profits, right? If they can see that so Indian economy is declining and the profit is also will be less, what will happen? They will sell their whatever the investment, and they will invest in the more profitable economies like US. Okay, that is what happened. So that is the reason also why $1 is equal to 95 rupees now. So why did investors push? So now the real reason. Okay, investors are selling their stocks and they're leaving India. So because of that, our rupee value is decreasing, and now $1 is equal to 95 Indian rupees. So, but what are the reasons? What are the reasons? So war. So the war, or the Persian uncertainty, or the Gulf, the West Asian war uncertainty, that is one of the main reasons. So what are the main reasons? The oil and gas prices are increasing, which means the input cost for the manufacturing and industries are increasing. If the input cost and the manufacturing increases, what will happen? So the profits will decrease and the inflation is increasing. So stress on more rupee, and also we are not exporting. Our exports came down. Okay, so because of the trade route distortion, our exports came down. So rupee is not performing well. So that is the reason they are taking. So this loop continues. This loop continues. So if the rupee is not performing well, economy is not performing well, so investors who invest in India, they will take that money. When the investors take that money, again the rupee will further decline. Again, the more investors who remains, they will also take their money. So that is what will happen. So what are the main factors? The war uncertainty. So more pressure on rupee. Investors prefer safer markets. Not at present, India looks like very risky market, not a safer market. So the investors want to invest in more safer markets like Western markets or the US markets. The global factors, war uncertainty, oil prices in India, yeah, more pressure, rupee. So investors prefer the safer markets. So FII outflow puts more pressure on rupee and increases the market volatility. So next important article. So how is the next UN chief being chosen? How is the next United Nations chief is being chosen? Almost we have in UN 193 countries, right? 193 countries in UN General Assembly. And UN Security Council, how many countries? It will be 10 plus 5. 5 permanent members and 10 non-permanent members. So what will be the procedure when there are new new UN General Secretary is coming? So mostly all the work, the selection process will be done by UNSC, UN Security Council. When the UN Security Council will choose the candidate and nominally the UN General Assembly will accept. So who will choose the candidate? The real power of choosing the UN UN General Secretary is with the UN Security Council. So we'll see the procedure. Okay. So selection process of the UN Secretary General. UN Secretary General, the chief administration officer of UN. So he's also called the global diplomat, and he is the one who regarded as very high global diplomat. But when you see the real power, he has very nominal power, not the real power. He acts as a global diplomat and agenda setter, mediator in conflicts. He is the one who try to mediate the conflicts. And the role highlights, he uploads the UN values, present United Nations globally, promotes peace and security, acts impartially. But now the real crux of this article, the selection process. The selection process, UN Charter, Article 1997, Article 97 of UN Charter, which gives the details of how the UN General Secretary was elected. So appointed by whom? General Assembly. So the UN Secretary General was appointed by General Assembly, but by the recommendation of UN Security Council. So General Assembly appoints the recommendation of, means the General Assembly has very nominal power. The ultimate authority lies with the UN Security Council. So we'll see. If a person A, for example, a person A want to elect, should have a good diplomatic profile and the country should nominate. For example, a person like me, I want to be a UN General Secretary. So I should have a strong diplomatic profile. And our country, that my country, like India, should strongly nominate me as the UN General Secretary candidate. Okay. But it's not mentioned in the charter of UN Article 97. But what it will do, the UN formally rotates every term. So it will rotate among the first, if they give the Africa, and they will go to the Asia, then the Latin America, then the Europe. At present, UN Secretary General is from the Europe. So it might, so very soon the next will be mostly probably from Asia or Latin America or from Africa. That's how the cycle will rotate. Okay, next. So how they select the real candidate? So now we'll see all the power. All the power in selecting the UN General Secretary is with the UN Security Council itself. So UN General Assembly just nominally it will accept the candidate recommended or chosen by UN Security Council. So 15 members are there, right? In UN Security Council, 15 members are there. To make that candidature worthy, he should receive at least 9 votes. For example, I was nominated by India, so to be a candidate of UN General Secretary, I should get at least 9 votes of 15 votes in the UN Security Council. I should get at least 9 votes in the 15 votes, and there should be no veto. So these 5 veto countries are there, right? Russia, China, like US, UK, France, these 5 veto countries, no veto power should veto the candidate. If any veto was for the candidate, and that candidature will be completely dropped forever. So any veto from P5 countries, then the candidature dies. So after multiple rounds, one name. So if there are 4 candidates, so multiple rounds of election process will be there. Finally, they will choose one candidate by the UN Security Council, and that one candidate are sent to the UN General Assembly, and the General Assembly gives the nominal validation or the nominal acceptance, and he will become the UN General Secretary. That is the process how the UN General Secretary was elected, and that the next new tenure starts from the Jan 2027. So appointed by General Assembly, but recommended by UN Security Council. That is very, very important. So government General Assembly appoints on the recommendation of UNSC. So who appoints? General Assembly appoints. Who recommends? Security Council recommends. So what are the key challenges? Limited authority with highest expectations, funding shortages, and declining credibility. Now, the respect towards the UN was decreasing, as with the present global scenario of wars and all, the individual, the autonomous decisions by some bigger powers like US, so which is not respecting of the UN General Assembly and UN bodies. So with that, the respect towards the UN among other people was decreasing because UN is not doing its job. So that is one of the main key challenge for the upcoming UN General Secretary. Okay. So he is the world top diplomat, but without any real power. This is the selection process of UN General Secretary. So these are the list of the important articles of today, and tomorrow we'll meet with the tomorrow's newspaper. And thank you for listening with us, on being with us, and please be subscribed for the notifications. Thank you.